All right, so we got what exactly is a Primarch Warhammer 40k lore. So, video, let's go.
Guys.
Also, by the way, make sure you guys follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/candy with 2 Y's at the bottom right of the screen. Let's go to the show. Let's go.
Love them or hate them, you can't deny that the Primarchs are a massive part of 40k's lore. They are awesome, interesting, mysterious, and they steal the show wherever they appear. They are the cause of most of the galaxy's problems, as well as most of the galaxy's solutions. But what exactly are they? I mean, sure, they are the sons of the Emperor, but it's not that straightforward. The lore is constantly alluding to their true dark nature. But was it just the Emperor coming in a test tube and then pranking the Chaos Gods that defines what they are, or is there more to it than that? Before we get started, we are just over 10,000 subscribers away from 600k.
Okay.
A massive milestone.
Yeah, major kill.
Upon hitting that milestone, we will trigger multiple goodies for you guys and gals, such as our last ever merch drop, a cosplay photo shoot of a wildly attractive woman dressed as Sanguinius, and who knows, we may even throw a drunk stream into the mix. So if you aren't subscribed but actually learned something from today's video, you just maybe enjoy it, or you just feel bad for me, I mean a sub's a sub, then slap that subscribe button. Every little bit counts.
True.
Today we'll go over what a Primarch is exactly, diving into the lore regarding their genetic modification, their organs, their connection to the warp, and every other little tidbit that you want to know. Now let's get into it. We're going to start off with the stuff that we know for certain about the Primarchs, before then diving into more of the highly likely but not 100% confirmed, before finishing with some
Let's get into it!
theory crafting to try and get an exact picture of what is going on with the Lords of the Legions. What we know for certain is that the creation of the Primarchs was extremely challenging for the Emperor. He had been seeking immortal warlords to lead his armies, and when the Perpetuals abandoned him, he knew he needed to make his own. Now he could just bioforge 20 sons, and those sons would have been impressive, but they wouldn't have that destiny-altering Primarch special source that he wanted them to have. To get this source, the Biggie had to enter into the warp to find it, not just the simple stroll into literal hell.
So we actually did learn about how the Emperor kind of like created like the Primarch stuff like that. So he actually used some of the warp to actually like create some of the Primarchs. Now there is like a I guess like a theory that there was like a girl named Ernie, I said Ernie, pause. Erda or something like that. Turns out she was like I guess she was like the one, I don't know if she was like the Emperor's wife or whatever, but there was a theory of like she was involved with like, you know, making the Primarchs as well. And whenever they were born, she would like throw them to like different like edges of like the universe, whatever, so like that the Emperor wouldn't like make them become like his warlord or something like that. It's like a confusing theory, but at the same time it kind of makes sense. So, or maybe it's just like how I broke it down. So that's my bad.
But he had to specifically access it from a special warp gate on the planet of Molech. The Emperor found this planet thousands of years before the Great Crusade would kick off, going there in secret and even leaving behind one of his perpetuals on the planet to guard the portal when he was done. We don't 100% know what happened when the Emperor walked into the portal, but here is what we do 100% know. He likely spent hundreds or thousands of years in the portal, as time in the warp is meaningless. In real time, he would have walked in and then walked straight out. However, it was said that when he walked out, he seemed more powerful but also more aged.
Oh, so is it like the it's kind of like the thing in Dragon Ball, the hyperbolic time chamber? Is it like that a little bit? Maybe it's like that.
Which is wild considering his immortality. The Chaos Gods claim that the Emperor entered into the warp and struck a bargain with them. A bargain that the Emperor would then renege on, hence why Chaos hates him so much. We know that the Emperor gained the knowledge and power he needed to create his demigod sons, and we know that this is also when Chaos took notice of the Emperor and would be the main reason why he was on their shit list. Other clues include the fact that the Emperor may never go through the Molech portal again, as if he did, the Chaos Gods would destroy him. But did the Emperor actually just waltz on in and have a chat with the Lords of Hell and literally accepted their raw power and knowledge?
That's
I would say
man, it's a nice looking sword right here. I'm sorry, my bad.
no. Chaos is known to be pretty shit at telling the truth, or at least a non-manipulated version of it.
It's the Chaos.
And the Emperor would also know that such a direct deal with the devil like that would end badly, which I mean, I suppose it did anyway. I believe that the Molech portal allowed the Emperor to enter into a special area of the warp that allowed him to make contact with 20 minor warp god entities. There are many warp entities that could be considered to be gods, most of which aren't necessarily Chaos aligned. In the current setting, it's said that countless warp gods are being born and then dying every moment. The Emperor likely spent thousands of years traveling this special part of the warp, finding each warp god, and then either convincing it or forcing it to join his Primarch project. The only bargain the Emperor may have had to make with Chaos was to allow him into the special part of the warp. I say special because if you just open up any old shit-ass warp portal and step on through, you will instantly be incinerated with warp fire as your very atoms dissolve and demons come to sodomize your ass.
Oh, wow.
But for some reason, the Molech portal allowed you to circumnavigate that part. The Chaos Gods would see the Emperor taking these warp gods as him taking their property, stealing from them, as they see the entire warp as their domain. Hence hence the stolen power reference that the Chaos Gods keep making. I'll get more into the Warp God theory and why it's most likely true later in this video. Either way, the Emperor now had the knowledge and power he needed, returning himself to Terra to begin his great work. With those Warp God souls in tow, or whatever the knowledge and power was, the Emperor could bind his DNA with that of Erda, the second most powerful perpetual, and
That's who I was talking about earlier. Erda. Okay.
20 or 21 if you count the twins as two Primarch sons. Although each son would look wildly different, most of them would share some sort of resemblance to the Emperor, with Lorgar being said to look most like his father out of all of them. By combining his insane scientific skill with the Molech power, which was probably minor warp gods, he was able to create these super powerful beings, the Primarchs. But what happens next is a bit of a head scratcher. The Primarch babies, bar Alfarius, was sucked into a warp portal and deposited on various human worlds across the galaxy, most of which seemed to perfectly suit the Primarch that landed there. But how did the Primarchs get sucked out of one of the most secure places in the galaxy? Well, it was a combo of things. A team of wordbearers who were traveling in time sabotaged the wards protecting the Primarch.
You look like Sylvester Stallone. Like he just came out of Rocky. Okay.
And then Erda, scared of the Emperor weaponizing his sons, which is a bit of a no shit moment. Like, what the fuck do you think the Emperor was going to use these demigod warlords for? Fucking gardening or some shit? Cast her Primarch sons into the warp. The Emperor didn't seem too worried about this overall though, almost as if he wanted this to happen but needed someone else to do it, as the Primarchs were able to go through a lot of character building as they grew up, rather than be raised by him on Terra, and his seemingly lack of care that they were scattered could just him not being an overly emotional guy. Using the Primarch's genetic makeup left over, the Emperor was able to create the Space Marine Legions, the warriors who would be the spear tip of the Imperium's new army and would be at the forefront of the Great Crusade. As Space Marines are creations from the Primarchs, who are in turn beings of the warp to an extent, there is a degree of warpiness involved in the Space Marines, even the non-Psyker ones. Although the Emperor was able to engineer each Primarch and their Space Marines to a degree, a lot of the final result was influenced by the Primarch's unique power drawn from their warp god souls. Like, I don't think the Emperor made Magnus red for the lols, nor do I think he made the Blood Angels a bunch of fucked up space vampires because he thought it was a good idea. Don't even get me started on the Thousand Suns getting turbo tumors or whatever the fuck was wrong with the Space Wolves.
I do. Here's the thing, right? I do think that even though everybody was like, you know, split and like being on like their own worlds or whatever, I do think that like the reason the characters are what we see today is because of like where they come from, basically. So like, for example, I use this example all the time. What's his name? Angron, the guy, like the Crash Out, the guy with like the nails or whatever. Like I do feel bad for him. Like I feel bad for like his story or whatever, because like, you know, obviously his story of him like, you know, being like a slave or whatever, and him losing like his best friend, and like them putting like the nails in his head, whatever. So like basically like his brain is just like, it's just like mashed potato. So like at the end of the day, I really do feel bad for, you know, his story. So I do like, I don't want to say that like him crashing out or whatever is like, you know, I don't want to say that that's like right, but at the same time, I do understand though. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not just because like he's an evil guy or whatever. No, I do understand his story. So I do think that like a lot of people's the reason a lot of people's personalities are what they are today is because of like their surroundings, like growing up or whatever. So yeah.
Sometimes shoving warp gods into bioengineered bodies made from your own DNA is more of an art than a science. But let's get a bit more grounded here. What about the physical Primarchs themselves? What's going on in their organs and body that makes them so bloody tough? Well, everything about a Primarch's anatomy is an absolute marvel. None of their organs, both human or Primarch exclusive, function how you would expect. What we do know is that the Primarchs have 2 hearts, and that they seem to be able to naturally do a lot of the whack shit.
Wait, they got 2 hearts? I didn't know that. These boys got 2 hearts going. Wow, I did not know that.
That their Space Marine sons can, such as gaining knowledge by drinking blood or eating brains. However, they dial up everything to 11. A Primarch can literally regrow a destroyed heart, and they have also various fail-safes, so if they do suffer catastrophic vital organ damage, their body can stay alive long enough to heal itself. When Horus was wounded by the Chaos Knife and was cut open by his apothecaries to try operate on, they literally had no idea what they were looking at and could barely recognize any of the organs.
Bro, yo, that is crazy, bro. Imagine like doing surgery on like a Primarch, bro. Like, you know, you're a doctor and you're like, all right, cool. I'm about to work on this real quick. I'm about to go home, you know, get laid up, get booed up by wifey. All right, okay. Last surgery of the day. You fix everything. You open them up. You gotta make the Primarch, you know, smell like grape anesthesia or whatever. He takes the anesthesia. He goes to sleep. You open everything. He like, all right. So what we got over here? He like, oh snap. We got some diamonds over here. We got this mysterious white just glow right here. It's kind of blinding me out. All right, come on, let's move this windy spicy chicken to the side. Let's move the fries to the side as well. All right, okay. All right, we got a whole can of Sprite. The actual cans here too. Okay. And like, bro, imagine just seeing like all this stuff. Like, you can't even recognize, like, to the human brain, you can't even recognize like what's in their body or whatever. That's kind of crazy.
Likewise, when Conrad Kurz was wounded badly, his apothecaries experienced a similar problem, and even said that Conrad had suffered 11 fatal wounds, each one bad enough to easily kill a Space Marine by themselves, as his body was literally on full meltdown.
Man, I know he got all types of gushers inside his body. He got all types of extension cords and like Xbox power cords. He got all types of knives and just thumbtacks. Like, yeah, this guy's a menace.
But he still managed to survive and make a pretty quick full recovery. I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of those random extra organs were literally just plan Bs and fail-safes, in case the brain, heart, lungs, or whatever suffered immense damage. Even a Primarch brain is wildly different, as evident by Angron's brain being incompatible with the Butcher's nails. It's also why decapitation seems to be the best option for Primarch slaying. Can't really have a plan B for losing your head, unless your name's Vulcan. Now Primarch...
Duh. Duh. Come on, bro.
Complicated, but Fabius Bile has managed to clone various Primarchs at various times. He cloned dozens of Manus's to act as Fulgrim's playthings, he created a Horus clone to try reunite the traitor legions, and he even managed to perfectly clone an uncorrupted Fulgrim. But all of these clones by the Fulgrim clone were notably inferior to actual Primarchs in all aspects. Fabius basically managed to show us what the Primarch project would have looked like if the Emperor didn't go to Molech and Pokemon a bunch of warp gods. The Ferris clones were easily slain by Fulgrim when they failed his test, the Horus clone struggled to beat Iskander Kaon and then was easily slain by Abaddon. It was only the Fulgrim clone, which I believe did actually have the Fulgrim warp god in it, that was actually decent, but then he got stuck in Trezin's museum, so womp. I did actually make a separate video about Clone Grim and how the warp god theory still applies to him despite the fact
saying womp is crazy today. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't want to say that, but I was like, yo, I had to say something.
So check that out after this if you'd like. It just shows that for all of Primarch's physical prowess, it's their warpiness that makes them so great. Now I do want to discuss their warpiness a bit more. All Primarchs are heavily connected to the warp, even the non-Psyker ones, as they are sons of the warp just as much as they are sons of the Emperor. Jagadai Khan, a non-Psyker, can still slay warp entities with his sword when his other White Scars cannot. Sanguinius doesn't use his wings to fly, like the physics don't check out at all. He uses warp power and the wings are just for show and also for maneuverability. That is actually confirmed in the lore, by the way, not just me talking shit. Corvus thought a lot about his warp connection and how it made him impure, as Corvus knew a lot more about Primarch nature than most of his brothers. He almost actually killed himself because of it, thinking himself inherently corrupted. However, he would go on to get over his little emo brooding session and would go on to embrace his full warp power, becoming an obscenely powerful Shadow Raven demon thingo. That each Primarch could naturally ascend into their warp god form, which is a bit embarrassing for the demon Primarchs, who seem to have locked themselves into a bit of a side grade, as opposed to the upgrade they were hoping for. A fun note supporting their warpiness is that when a Primarch teleports, which basically involves very quickly putting them in the warp and then putting them back in real space in a different spot, the Primarchs feel quite at ease and at home in that tiny moment that they are in the warp, almost like they belong there, as opposed to whenever anyone else teleports. Non-Primarchs dislike teleporting as it makes them feel sick and disorientated. Another point I want to mention is that when a Primarch dies, there is an explosion of bright light as their warp god soul escapes their now dead body.
I did hear about that. I actually did hear about that. They said that whenever, I think they said whenever, Yo, iPhone, disrupt me again, yo. I promise you, this be your last day. Other than that, they did say something about that, whenever Horus got taken out by the Emperor, there was like a big explosion, whatever, that could be felt by other Primarchs or whatever. So they said that whenever like a Primarch would like pass away or whatever, that it could actually be felt by the other Primarchs, even though like they don't even have to be in like the same vicinity as them. They could just like feel that like a Primarch, just went. They just went like bonanza.
This explosion of light does not trigger when a Primarch clone dies. Upon their death, their Space Marines will feel it via their warpy connection to their Primarch.
Told y'all, see, I told y'all, look, see.
For some, it's subtle, like the Iron Hands who became extremely dark, angry, and ruthless after Ferris's death. For others, it's obvious, with the Blood Angels all going completely insane and feral for a while after Sanguinius's death. It's also why many salamanders believe that Vulcans still live after Istvan. They could feel it in their bones.
Facts.
Now back to the
Facts.
Warp God
I
theory
can too.
stuff.
I can
I've
too.
spoken a lot about this in the past, but it's such a good headcanon in my opinion, and it's since been so heavily supported by the lore that I am very confident on it and confident on sharing it as a near fact.
Okay.
I've explained what the theory was earlier in this video, but now allow me to give you some evidence to support it.
Okay.
Recent lore confirms that Baal has two angelic gods constantly fighting for dominance, an angel of light and an angel of darkness. These gods were likely what the Emperor took and put into Sanguinius, hence why he was this angelic being, but also why he had this darkness within him that would manifest via the Black Rage and Red Thirst in his sons.
Okay.
These angel gods have been around well before Sanguinius was created, yet they are still tied to the Blood Angel Legion. With Sanguinius dead, it makes sense that these angels would return to their original role. The Emperor and Malcador both said that given enough time, they could revive the dead Primarchs. This would be via creating a new body for them and then finding and coaxing the Warp God back into its new flesh. But as Primarchs started dying during the Horus Heresy, a busy time for everyone, they weren't able to do it. The Warp God theory also explains the massive diversity within the Primarchs. Like surely if the Emperor had full control, he would have just made 20 Guillimans or 20 Rogals. Why the fuck would he create sons like Conrad? Furthermore, it would also explain why each Primarch landed on the world that they did. Their warp god was attracted to that world and subtly pulled them there. Sanguinius landing on Baal, the world with the angel gods, being the best example. And as a final tidbit, many Primarchs have either realized or come close to realizing their true nature, and they are always extremely shaken by it. Rust was devastated by the thought that he was a warp deity. Corvus almost committed suicide, and Horus uses it as one of his justifications for turning on the Emperor. Like, this theory is heavily discussed in the lore by the Primarchs themselves. I didn't just make this shit up. The point being the fucked up irony of the Emperor using warp gods to conquer a galaxy, and then tell that galaxy there is no such thing as warp gods. Now that sounds exactly like something the Emperor would do. So what is a Primarch exactly? In my opinion, they are a genetic marvel created using the shared DNA of both the Emperor and Erdar, who were then infused with a minor warp god or a massively powerful unique warp entity that the Emperor took from the warp on Molech, creating these destiny-bending super beings. But just because I know that the hyperlore purist retards are going to have an aneurysm about me saying that, the warp god theory is still a theory. A great theory, but a theory nonetheless. It's possible the Emperor did just take a bunch of warp power to use on their creation, but that's kind of boring. If you enjoyed the video...
Other than that, man, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also, shout out to Major Kill, man. My Twitch at the bottom of the screen, man. Make sure you guys follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/KingAD with 2 Ys. Other than that, I'm going to see you guys every time out. Peace out, everybody.